of the League of Women. And I'm the treasurer of the League of Women Voters of Butte County. On behalf of President Sasiveeth and the members of the League Board, I welcome all of you to the League of Women Voters of Butte County presentation on water in Butte County. Thank you all for joining us. This program was prepared by the Natural Resources Committee of our League with committee members Toni Reid, Sunday Cummins, and Suellen Rowlison doing the presentation. Sunday is the Zoom host for the program and has done all the work on the visual portion of the presentation. Many thanks, Sunday. Join us now as we learn about water in Butte County. We will be muting all of the participants until we get to the Q&A session. Take it away.
Sorry. Welcome to our program on water in Butte County. Our county is rich in water resources, and unlike many areas of California, there is no need to import water. We have the 3 branches of the Feather River that merge near Oroville and flow into the reservoir behind Oroville Dam. The water stored behind the dam supplies an important part of the water used by households, agriculture, and businesses in California, as well as providing recreational facilities for Butte County residents and many visitors. We also have many smaller streams and creeks, as well as 3 aquifers, which provide groundwater storage. The 3 questions we will address this evening are: where does your water come from? How is it distributed? And why does it matter? At this time, we'd like you to please take a moment to complete this short poll. It'll be about 20 more seconds, and then we'll have the results of the poll. Well, it looks like Chico is the highest representative, but we do have members here from other places in the county. Mostly groundwater users, that would be Chico for the most part. And the biggest concern is by far availability. Well, thank you very much, for taking our poll. And before we begin the actual presentation, we would like to cover some definitions. Key terms: cubic foot, CF, is 7.48 gallons of water. 100 cubic feet, CCF, is the standard consumption unit, which is often used by districts to bill water usage, as you can see from some of the water details there. Acre foot, 325,851 gallons of water, which is approximately equal to the football field flooded to a depth of 1 foot. Cubic feet per second, CFS, the amount of water moved per second past a single point, such as the release from Oroville Dam. As an example, Oroville Dam release of 1,200 cubic feet per second would equal 8,976 gallons per second, or 32,313,000 plus gallons per hour. Groundwater is water stored in aquifers and accessed via wells. Surface water, water available from river, stream, creek, lake, or reservoir. Water right, the permitted use of water from a defined watershed or creek or river, the ability to use and store that water. Two types of rights. Riparian is those attached to properties that border natural waterways. And appropriative rights can be secured by properties not immediately adjacent to waterways. These two types of water rights systems created conflicts early on between water users. So the Water Commission Act of 1913 was passed to allow more rational control of water rights. The act declared that water is a property of the state and established a permit process to control water rights. The State Water Resources Control Board, SWRCB, was established to govern the permit process. The Water Commission Act became the basis for appropriating water, but it does not apply to groundwater, riparian rights, or appropriative rights established prior to 1914. That is pre-1914 rights. Water district, irrigation district, municipal district, and special district, all agencies that deliver water to end users, whether it be drinking water or irrigation water, and operate under the California Water Code. Now for our first question, where does your water come from? On your screen now is a map of the Feather River watershed. Many thanks to Kyle Morgado, senior hydro engineer with Yuba Water Agency, who provided this map for us. To orient you on the map, here is Chico, here is Paradise, and Oroville, and of course Lake Oroville, and the North Fork, Middle Fork, and South Fork of the Feather River. If you live in Paradise, your water is supplied from the Little Butte Creek. Here on the map, you can see the watershed supplying the creek. Some of the water is stored here in Paradise Lake and Magalia Dam. The lower part of Magalia, Paradise Pines, also receives some of this water via an intertie. Water not stored from Little Butte Creek flows down here and eventually joins Butte Creek in Butte Creek Canyon. Butte Creek then continues down through South Chico and into the Durham area. Upper Magalia uses groundwater, and Lower Magalia, Paradise Pines, also has some water supplied by groundwater pumping. If you look off here to the east, you will see Concal Reservoir. This is a small reservoir and supplies surface water for Thermalito. Thermalito is the section of Oroville to the north and west of the downtown Oroville area. It includes the county government buildings as well as the airport. It is also a fast-growing residential area of Oroville, as many multiple unit buildings are being constructed. So if you live in Thermalito, you get your water from Concal Reservoir, but there are 4 groundwater wells that can be used in case of emergency. Just north and to the west of Thermalito, you can see the Forebay and the Afterbay, which receive water from Lake Oroville and store the water as well as warm it before it moves on through canal systems to agricultural users in the west and south of Butte County. These agricultural users have rights to water from the Feather River that predate the building of Oroville Dam. If you live in the main Oroville area, your water is supplied mainly by surface water purchased from PG&E. There are 4 wells which are for use in extremely dry periods. If you live in Kelly Ridge, which is a large residential area to the east of Oroville and right on the lake, you get your water from the South Fork of the Feather River. The South Fork of the Feather River comes from the east here and supplies not only Kelly Ridge, but all the many rural residential areas in the foothill region to the east of Oroville, as well as agricultural enterprises to the south and east of Oroville. Many of these agricultural interests are supplied by 160 miles of open ditch, which date back to the mining days in California. If you live in Chico, Durham, or Hamilton City, all of your water comes from groundwater pumping. Agricultural enterprises to the north of Durham and west of Chico also depend on groundwater supplies, since there is no reliable source of surface water available. If you live in Gridley or Biggs, you receive your water also from groundwater wells. Farming enterprises in the southwest portion of the county, from Durham south to the Butte County line, get surface water from the Feather River, and there are a number of water districts that distribute the water. Biggs West Gridley Water District, Butte Water District, and Richville Irrigation District are some of them. Many farmers in this area also have ag wells as a backup source during dry periods. Throughout the county, there are many residents in foothill areas, such as Cohasset, Berry Creek, Butte Valley, or Forest Ranch, that access water through private wells. The same is true for individuals in the valley area that do not live in towns, cities, or municipal areas. So how is your water distributed? Hopefully you now have a picture of where the water is coming from, but how is it distributed from so many different sources? On your screen, you can see the 7 major water distributors to Butte County population centers. The Paradise Irrigation District is the distributor for the water coming from Little Butte Creek. They manage the Paradise Lake facility as well as the Magalia Dam and have a waste water treatment plant. You can see the infrastructure they have for distribution and also the cost for customers. It is in 2 parts, a meter charge for available to serve, and then a price per consumption unit, 100 cubic feet. The district has been in real financial jeopardy as a result of the Camp Fire, which destroyed much of their infrastructure and took away 80% of their customers. They also can only use a small portion of the potential storage behind Magalia Dam due to earthquake concerns. The state has helped backfill their needs for 2 years, and the district feels that with help for another year and receipt of the PG&E settlement, they will be solvent again. The district is currently having an options study done by GEI consultants to determine all options for the district while the population returns. Estimates are that it will take about 20 years to return to 80% of the pre-fire population. PID has the rights to more water than the required needs of their customers. They also could store more of the water they have rights to if repairs were made to Magalia Dam. They are looking at possible ways to sell their excess water, including a possible intertie to Chico. This would be complicated and is only in the discussion stages. The Del Oro Water Company serves customers in Magalia. They too lost customers as a result of the Camp Fire. Customers in lower Magalia, Paradise Pines, have a mixture of groundwater and treated water from PID via intertie supplied. Upper Magalia is supplied by groundwater. On the screen, you can see their water weights. The Thermalito Water and Sewer District distributes the water to the Thermalito area. They have a water treatment plant for raw water treatment. You can see the infrastructure they have, as well as costs to customers. They serve a population of approximately 11,000, which is certainly growing as large multi-unit housing projects are being built right now. The water gets to Thermalito from the Concal Reservoir via Concal Creek into the West Branch and then into Lake Oroville. It is delivered from the lake to Thermalito via the diversion dam and the Thermalito Power Canal. Water released from Lake Oroville goes downstream to a diversion dam, which is pictured on your screen. Here, some water is diverted to the Thermalito Power Canal, while the rest continues on to the fish ladder by the fish hatchery in Oroville and on downstream in the main Feather River Channel. The water in the Thermalito Power Canal also supplies water to the Forebay and Afterbay. South Feather Water and Power, which serves Kelly Ridge, East Oroville, and ag users in the East County area to the southern border of Butte County is a very large and complex district. The district has rights to all the water on the South Fork of the Feather River. South Feather Water and Power is a power generator with 5 reservoirs upstream from the Oroville area generating electrical power. Their reservoir at Little Grass Valley is a large recreational facility with campgrounds and boating facilities. They have a water treatment plant near Kelly Ridge and serve approximately 10,000 residential users. They also have 160 miles of open ditch canals, which take water from the South Fork and distribute it throughout the region to agricultural users. This photo reminds us that the history of moving water from rivers in Butte County goes back to the early days of gold mining. A miner's inch, which is the amount of water that flows through a hole an inch in diameter, was a way of measuring water during that time. A board with a 1-inch hole was placed in a small dam about 6 inches below the surface. The water flowed out at about 11 gallons per minute. My orange orchard is located within the South Feather Water and Power District, and when my husband first bought the property, we were billed in miner's inches. The history of South Feather Water and Power is the most interesting one, and a copy of that history is available on our website, along with many other of the resources that we have used for this presentation. South Feather Water and Power has the rights to more water than is currently being used by the district for existing customers. They are well placed to provide both residential and agricultural water as population within their district continues to grow. Cal Water Company Oroville distributes the water in the main city of Oroville. They do not have water rights to any surface water and purchase their water mainly from PG&E. PG&E sends the water through the west branch of the Feather into Lake Oroville, and it comes to Cal Water Oroville through the Thermalito Power Canal, which you viewed a little while ago. They have 2 reservoirs and 2 storage tanks. They also have a water treatment plant. And once again, you can see their residential rates. California Water Service in Chico pumps all the water it delivers from groundwater sources. It also serves Hamilton City. Chico District has 68 wells, which pump an average of 27 million gallons of groundwater a day. Hamilton City has 3 wells and pumps about 1/2 million gallons per day. Cal Water Chico currently has no facilities to receive raw water. Those residents living outside city limits or in areas where there is no water service company rely on groundwater from private wells. The groundwater supplied to Gridley and Biggs is managed by the public works departments in those communities. The agricultural users in the south and western portions of the county are mainly using surface water from the Feather River, which is distributed by many different irrigation districts and canal districts. You can see a map here of the afterbay and the point at the top where water is released to the western agricultural users' canals. At the bottom is the release point where water is put back into the Feather River. As I said earlier, this is also a warming basin for water before it is delivered to agricultural users. The Thermalito Afterbay Dam, at 42,000 feet long, is the longest crest in the California State Water Project. As in other parts of the county, there are many small acreages and individual homes in the rural areas which rely on private wells pumping groundwater. Many of the ag users also have backup wells for use in time of water shortages.
Thank you, Toni. Great presentation. I'm taking over from here. This is Suellen. And we've asked the key questions. Where does your water come from? How is it distributed? And we have shown you the many sources of water in our county and the many complex systems by which it is distributed to our urban communities, as well as agricultural enterprises in the county. Now, question number 3 is, why does it matter? We know that water is a source of life. But it also matters because the legislation passed by the state legislature in 2014, called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, also known as SGMA, will for the first time in the state's history require measuring groundwater in the aquifers and limiting groundwater usage to the amount that will sustain and not deplete groundwater storage. The link to this slide, from the Department of Water Resources, known as DWR, is on our resources list at the end of this program. All of the eastern portions of our county and the farming region in the southwestern area are almost totally using surface water. Surface water rights have long been regulated in California, and the rights of some of them, like the Paradise Irrigation District, South Feather Water and Power, PG&E, and many other agricultural irrigation and canal districts in the Southwest County for water from the Feather River are of long standing. There is available water to meet the needs of these portions of our county and to allow for growth in the Oroville and Paradise urban areas. However, to the west, Chico, Hamilton City, Durham, Ridley, and Biggs, as well as the agricultural region north of Durham and west of the county line, are all dependent on groundwater resources. There are real concerns by urban residents, as well as farmers, that restrictions on groundwater pumping will adversely affect the ability of that area to add population or to farm the land, or worse yet, that the restrictions will not be strict enough to support the aquifer at a high enough level to keep urban trees and natural habitat prospering. There are some advocates who support finding a source of surface water that could be moved to the Chico area to help reduce the amount of groundwater usage. The Tuscan Water District has just been approved by LAFCO. The stated aim of that soon-to-be formed district is to bring additional water into the Chico area, or even to interject surface water into the aquifer. The Paradise Intertie is one example of this. Is this possible? Is there available water in other parts of the county to move additional water from? What are the potential benefits and liabilities? Our league held a program in this last November that featured speakers from both sides of the proposed Tuscan Water District. If you missed it, it is still available on the league website. As you have seen from our presentation, moving water from one point to another is complex and expensive. If that water must be purchased, it is much more expensive. There are certainly many challenges ahead and many questions that must be answered if additional water is to be brought to the Chico area. In June, please join us for our part 2 of our discussion of water in Butte County. We will have speakers who will discuss the Vina and Butte sub-basin groundwater management plans. We will discuss Table A water, the cost of infrastructure to move water, and the legal ramifications of using surface water to inject into an aquifer. This presentation from tonight will be available on our league website soon, as well as a list of resources that are used here. So don't try to take notes. They will be available shortly as a part of the presentation. So now it's come to this part of the program where we have time for questions. And if you have questions that you've put in the chat or would like to ask, we'll pass this on to, I'm not sure who's taking over this part, but we'll all help. I mean, myself and Toni and the other people. Thank you.
One comment from comments or chat. Butte Creek also has diversion points to take water for irrigation. Edgar Slough, also known as Comanche Creek, is one example.
Yes, thank you for that. Are there other questions? You can unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can raise your hand if you want, even if you have that. I don't see that on here.
Another from chat. I'm new to the Chico area, probably a silly question. No, but what role does Sacramento River play?
Well, there are some pumps on the Sacramento River that are used by agricultural users that are within the county, like M&T Ranch. It's out below where Big Chico Creek comes into Sacramento River. So there's others too, but I can't name them right offhand. But of course, all of our, as far as the Sacramento River, of course, all of our tributaries, if the water doesn't get used up before it gets there, it goes down into from Butte, the Butte sink, and directly into the Sacramento River, such as the Big Chico Creek.
Another chat question. Do we have a sense of what is sustainable in terms of groundwater usage?
I could start that, I guess. That is one of the things that's to be determined by these GSPs, what do you call it, how do you say it? What does it stand for, GSP?
Groundwater Sustainability Plan.
Yes, that is their mission, to try to figure out what is a sustainable amount. And mostly we have water records that go way back of the levels of groundwater. That it goes up and down depending on the season, and then of course long-term drought.
Well,
But when the wells
those
go dry, there's a problem.
the agencies too that were just formulated for the subbasins have submitted their plans into the state. And it's my understanding that the state is reviewing those, and there will be time in the next coming months for review and going over questions, and if the state has problems with what was submitted. Is that what you understand, Jim Brobeck?
That is what's happening. The Department of Water Resources is reviewing it. It's open for public comment for another month or so. But there are some concerns that the groundwater plans for the Butte subbasin and the Vina subbasin have operating ranges that are not ambitious enough to protect the domestic well owners as well as the groundwater dependent ecosystems. So those two groundwater sustainability plans, as well as the Calusa groundwater sustainability plan, which has impacts on this side of the river, are being challenged in court right now because of those extremely generous, if I might call them, operating ranges that operate way below the historic lows that we've already experienced here in Butte County.
So, Jim, you're talking about the actual level of the groundwater.
Yes, the groundwater plans have operating ranges, proposed operating
Okay.
ranges. And these operating ranges that they're suggesting begin at the historic low and go up to 80 feet below the historic lows that have occurred over the past 20 years. So it's of great concern. It's my opinion they need to be adjusted, and it needs better coordination with what's going on the other side of the river, because we share the aquifer. We share the lower Tuscan aquifer with Glenn County in particular. And Glenn County has been really expanding their groundwater infrastructure on areas that have historically been irrigated by river water, and then transferring their river water, or portions of the river water, to buyers in other areas of the state.
And that's sort of how we share the Sacramento River and all the water in the aquifers on both sides of the river, or not.
The state will also be weighing in on these plans. Isn't that also correct, Jim?
That's true. And some of the plants that they've already looked at, they have identified some problems associated with it that have to do with a lack of protection for domestic well owners. So we'll see what the state thinks of our plan up here. But regardless, it needs to have a spotlight shined on it, because the Department of Water Resources is their interests are much broader than just the health of the Butte County aquifer. They're struggling, especially in years like we're having now and may continue into the future, with trying to provide water to many people that live south of the Sacramento Valley that are on the State Water System project.
Thank you for your comments, Jim. You're setting us up for our next presentation, part 2, which is looking more at groundwater. And we'll have some speakers and panelists for that presentation. And we'll go much more into depth on the groundwater and the Tuscan aquifer, and how we transfer water here and there and interject water into the aquifers. All those issues we need to be aware of. And so we will be addressing that in the next presentation. So the date hasn't been set yet. It'll be sometime in June. So we'll be calling on people like Jim and others who know a lot more than we know. So but we wanted to give you this basic primer on water as to where it comes from in our county, and now we'll go on to how we can keep maintaining water for our county and share it with others. Yes, go ahead.
Do you want more questions from chat?
Sure, absolutely, if they're there, yeah.
Okay, how are the managements of these various water providers chosen? Public elections, self-appointed, how? And I have a few more. No answer to that one?
Well, I think some of the districts go, South Feather certainly, and PG&E have water rights that go a long way back. You know, I know PG&E goes back into the 1850s even. And so a lot of these districts were formed through the mining times, the South Feather was, and then they worked with the Railroad Commission when that was land was being allocated and water was being moved into the south area of the county and the eastern portion there. So those districts are older districts, and they are managed, you know, under the state. So maybe somebody has more.
Yeah, this is Amy Raymond. I'm Butte County Water Commissioner, and I think I could answer that for you. These various districts are formed under different divisions of the California Water Code that oversees all of them. So an irrigation district has a set of rules that are different than a California water district versus a reclamation district. And so they each, most of these water districts here are landowner based. So Richvale Irrigation, Western Canal, those districts are run by their landowners. And so they have voting rights based on their assessed value, or basically how much taxes they're paying into those various districts. And so while they are voted, their leadership is voted on by those landowners. A irrigation district like Durham Irrigation District, those are registered voter districts. So the people who are in those districts, it's one person, one vote. So the concern with the Tuscan Water District is a California water district, and so it's landowner based, and the voting will be based on the land value in that district. We kind of talk about it's 1 acre, 1 vote, which is sort of what it works out to be when they haven't incurred any fees. But once they start charging fees, then the voting goes to one vote per $1 of land value. So the biggest landowners get the biggest votes.
I'll just add to that, Paradise Irrigation District has I think it's a 5-member board. I'm trying to think how their members are voted on, but they just added a new board member because of a resignation. But that's all public information, and you can go on their website. And we've listed the websites of each of these irrigation districts on a resource list. And then the
Correct.
Chico, California.
So Cal Water is a private company.
Right, and it's a
you
large
don't
company.
vote. Yeah, that
Oh.
goes to the stockholders of the
Right.
California
That's
Water.
about what I was just going to say, that it's
Paradise,
over several
Paradise.
states. And we're just one, Cal Water Oroville and Cal Water Chico have managers here locally, but they all have to
Yeah,
report
it's
to.
a private corporation. So
Yeah.
Paradise Irrigation District, as an irrigation district, is a registered voter district. So
Okay,
they're public, one person, one vote.
Mhm.
And South Feather is also on the ballot at many election times.
Ah.
Had their candidate forums.
Okay.
So I have a few more questions and comments from chat. What are the implications of reservoirs being so low?
Well, I think that the implications will be that people will not be getting their expected water allocations. We've already seen that from the state. I think that from the Lake Oroville standpoint, there certainly will be water available for home usage and so forth, but there may be water restrictions. I think that the lower part of the California, the reservoirs are at a little higher level than Lake Oroville and Mount Shasta. But it's going to be if this continues, it's certainly going to be a tough year for everybody in every respect.
Well, we're going to see a lot more groundwater pumping. Ag, you saw that Ag didn't get their surface water diversions. I think state is trying to make sure that the domestic water users get sufficient water. So Ag is not getting water, which means Ag is going to be pumping. So we're where people can pump, they're going to pump because they aren't going to get their surface water. And then when, you know, surface water and groundwater are intertwined with each other, those systems do work together. And as groundwater drops, surface water, you know, drops too. So this is going to be really, really challenging, challenging year.
And right after that, following on, those of us who are domestic well owners are very worried about what will happen to us as the groundwater level drops.
Well, I
And
think that it's the domestic ground well users that, you know, they're usually not as deep as ag wells often go much deeper. And they are often the ones whose wells go dry if the groundwater supply gets too low. So they definitely have things that they need to worry about with that, because it could certainly happen in the years ahead. And this year might be a harbinger.
Yeah, and I guess I would also like to encourage the domestic, you know, well user to speak up. The voice that's being heard by our Board of Supervisors and being heard at Water Commission and in the groundwater sustainabilities is the ag user. They are the ones who are being the most vocal, and so their needs and wants are being met. The domestic user is not in these meetings. So I highly encourage everybody on this call to get very involved and encourage these groundwater sustainability agencies and the people who are representatives there to take the voice of the domestic well user, because our wells, we're dropping groundwater. Our groundwater levels have been dropping since the 1970s. And they started taking a sharp decline in the 1980. In the North Chico area, we're easily down 20 feet and continuing to drop. So the domestic well user is going to be the first person to feel it and be impacted by it and be in the worst position to actually deal with it. You know, when your well's dry, it's dry. All these well drillers are busy. And I understand that it's a good year to a year and a half wait to get somebody out to deepen your well or move your pump.
As a domestic well user, I appreciate that information. We have chats blowing up here with questions. Next one is, does the Machuca tribe have the most senior water rights? And other tribes?
Water rights tend to be associated with surface water diversion. And the Machuca don't have a history of water diversions. Their water rights would be more associated with groundwater dependent ecosystems, with stream flow for salmon, groundwater sustaining oak trees for acorn production, and the associated plants that go along with the valley oak ecosystem. So they certainly have rights to groundwater, and they could also probably pursue rights to the public trust groundwater dependent ecosystems that they rely on for their lifestyle, their sustenance.
I also understand that the Indian tribes are not beholden to SGMA, given the way that governance works, and they cautious about being involved in the SGMA groundwater planning process because of not wanting to give up some of their, have some sort of different legal rights on it. But Jim's right, the water rights tend to be associated to the water streams and all of that. So it's different for them.
Richard Harriman addressing you all. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on this program, and in the spirit of the first meeting being informative information primarily. I would add that there are a couple of other issues that we might want to watch as we go through this process. Going back to the Native American water rights, there are some water rights defined as Pueblo water rights that precede the 1914 right determination. And some of the other tribes like the Enterprise Rancheria and so on had their water rights bought out and taken when the Oroville Dam was built. So there are different kinds of water rights that apply to the Native American water rights. Statewide, the statistics tell us that there's approximately 11% of what are called inchoate rights, and those are rights that have not been perfected or that may still be available, and 11% of them are arguably held by the Native American tribes or tribal governments. And second thing I would add is that one of the points that got debated a lot during the SHAC, the Stakeholder Advisory Committee meetings, as well as the meetings of the GSAs for VINA and the others that I know Jim Brobeck attended religiously, is that there really is a discussion about 4 different kinds of water rights. So you have municipal and industrial. We've already talked about domestic water rights. We have also agricultural water rights. And then an additional use are what Jim characterized as public trust uses, which have been less defined. I think one of the good sources of information that appeared recently in the Enterprise record was the new chair of the Butte County Water Commission, Ernie Washington's op-ed piece, where he gave a pretty good broad overview, raised some questions, teased out some issues. I thought it was a good start, well-balanced, well-articulated, well-reasoned. He took over for David Skinner, who had been on the commission for 19 years and was a superb leader. The other issue that has been raised in the SHAC meetings and in the public meetings is a term called carrying capacity. And that's essentially a environmentally based term, which is how long can we have sustainable use of the water over a long period of time, and what is the ultimate limits on the sources of water, whether they be surface or groundwater. And then the final point I would make is there's a recent case that came out in 2018 in our appellate district of the state of California, the 3rd District Court of Appeal in Sacramento, the Environmental Law Foundation versus the State Water Resources Control Board and Siskiyou County, that made some findings regarding the public trust rights and interests that apply both to surface water streams or rivers such as the Sacramento River, Butte Creek, any of the others, as well as groundwater rights, especially where there are groundwater wells that are in the riparian zone. And for plain English, that means groundwater wells that are located adjacent to or near the sources of riparian flows, Sacramento River and so on. And so those groundwater pumping exercises that are either acquired by riparian or appropriative rights are still part of the water supply and the water demand equation that we're looking at. So my encouragement to all of you is come back to the next meeting, try to do some more research while we are in recess, and raise some more questions, because the more questions and the more information that we get out, the better it's going to be for the whole community. So sorry to be so long-winded, but I think this is a great program, and thank you for putting it on.
Thank you. Helen, are there other things in the chat?
I have 8 new messages. I have read that GSPS needs to adjust the timeline for average usage because the last 20 years have been exceptionally dry historically and create their own new normal. The past 20 years only should be used for water projections to more accurately show the reality we are in. We no longer experience the type of climate previous to the past 20 years. And they've also read that the new normal is that we're using 19th and 20th century infrastructure for a new 20th century reality. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that or.
That sounds like a big topic, which maybe we
Yeah.
should make a note of and try to cover as a part of our next presentation. I'm just curious about what the other questions are. Are these ones that,
One comment, of course,
easier to-
more wells will be drilled deeper. And then this is a question that is kind of, how is the fact that fruit and nut trees all over Butte County are needing to be watered all January and February this year due to no rain? How is that affecting the groundwater?
The trees are, they're actually watering for frost protection right now, is why you're seeing the orchards wet, is that the groundwater is warmer than the surface. So they're trying to warm for that. And they commonly, would be, there is periods of utilizing it. But again, it's stressing an already reduced volume of groundwater that we have. What is of more concern is that we have seen a conversion in Butte County of what was seasonal crops, the rice and things that could be grown annually or grown or not grown, to the permanent crops of nut trees that have to be watered year after year, whether you want to or not, to preserve the trees. And so there has been a overall reduction in net acres of agriculture, but there has been a net increase, 0 to increase in the amount of water demanded by agriculture within Butte County. So you'll see the Farm Bureau say, hey, there's less acres of ag, but those acres are using more acre feet of water per year than the acres that have gone out.
And
So
this
it's very subtle.
This year
Yeah.
is going to be very difficult as far as the trees needing water, the permanent crops. We have an orange orchard, and our trees at this point in first week of March really need to be irrigated.
I have another sort of logistic question here. These questions in the chat, are those saved so that we can look at them and research them for the next presentation? Yes?
I
Good.
could, I've got 10 new messages here.
Well, good. We like the interest. We just can't get to all the questions and have the right answers yet in such a short period of time, but maybe just read off some of the questions so we can pick the ones that are the easiest to answer.
Does anyone
In our
know the
time
number
frame.
of domestic wells that could be potentially affected by low ground level waters?
Yeah, there is a list of wells that when you create a well, there is a well permit that is issued, so they know where the well is generally located, not to a GPS coordinate. They know its location and they know what the depth of the well. So in the groundwater sustainability plan, they actually have some plots of that. And if you look, actually, the state of California has a dry well report, and I encourage you to take a look at those data sets and zoom out on it, and to see where all the dry wells are in the state of California. And so you could actually look at some of those and kind of predict where you might be finding dry wells. And I think the Forest Ranch area is problematic, and then there's some problematic areas at the Rock Creek Cohasset region.
And is the Board of Supervisors and LAFCO paying attention to these domestic users or no?
No, the Board of Supervisors, so Todd Kimmelshoe was his campaign was almost solely funded by ag interests, and Bill Connolly was also heavily funded by ag interests and Teeter.
I think
So
that
those three guys are very much listening to ag interests.
I think that we don't want to get into that
The
discussion.
politics of it, but
The
you
politics,
you need
please.
to show up, yeah, and let them know. Let your voice be heard.
Helen, is there anything else from the chat or?
Well, one of them, I'm gonna pass by based on that last comment. Is there solid science behind the viability of artificially recharging groundwater?
That's
No.
gonna be the topic of our next conversation. our next
Okay, good.
presentation. Sorry to,
There was a question on there, do they think that people in Chico are going to have restrictions? And I want to applaud the citizens of Chico during the last declared drought, when the governor asked the residents of California to conserve water. And Cal Water got on board and encouraged people to conserve water, and they supplied people with low flow shower heads and that sort of thing. Well, the city of Chico up till that point was using about 32 or 33,000 acre feet of water per year. And because of the efforts of the citizens of Chico, that went down to about 21,000. They cut over 30% of the use of water. So I'm so encouraged that the citizens of Chico, when asked to do so, voluntarily conserve water. And in the same way that most of the water used in California is used to irrigate, most of the water used in Chico has been used to do outdoor irrigation. And I'm sure people that live in Chico have noticed a lot of people have shifted to drought tolerant landscaping. And that has made a huge impact on water demand. And what everybody in California needs to understand is we need to manage demand. When people claim there are new supplies to be developed, those supplies only are taken from the natural world and have impacts to ecosystems and impacts to existing users, like, for instance, shallow well owners. So conservation and managing demand is always the priority. And the citizens of Chico have already taken a strong step in that direction. And there's still a lot of unnecessarily large turf out there that could be converted into very attractive water conserving landscaping. And I think that's in the future, as this climate regime that we're experiencing right now is likely to be the new normal.
does one of our officers of the league or Jane want to make a comment on one of the comments that was made on the chat about why is the league not a political forum? I see Sharon Wallace is saying the intention of this forum is to be educational.
Well,
So
I'd like
look
to
at
say
all
that,
sides. Go ahead, Jane.
I'd like to say that the league is political on issues. We're political on issues, and we're more than happy to debate and discuss and have forums on issues. We do not do that on candidates or political parties. And so as far as water political issues, we're here. We want to listen, we want to act. But as far as talking about particular candidates and parties, that's just something the league does not do. And this forum is educational, but we like the comments. And so in some ways it has already been a little political, but it's on the issues.
Thank you, Jane. Well, if there's no further questions or comments from the chat, we want to thank all of you very much for being with us this evening. And I do hope that we can have all of you attend in June when we further this conversation. There's lots of voices to be heard and lots of information to be gathered. So thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Go have a big drink of water.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll stay on to the last drop of water.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike.
Good work, group.
You get it? So I need to get all those questions from the chat so we can start lining up questions and answers for the next session.
I think you actually answered most of them tonight. I mean, I did cover